Right, today we're going to speak about the Fourth Ecumenical Council. So we talked about the Third Ecumenical Council last week, which was to say that Christ was one hypostasis and not two. So again, the stories who try to sort of say he was two persons, and sort of joined together because of common goodness or something of that nature. And we've discussed that the union of the two is because they are both Son. It's due to the manner of existence of the Son as Son, which is only begotten of the Father. And so the union is that his human nature is only begotten of the Father also, which means why he doesn't have a human father. He's the only begotten Son of Mary, why she's ever virgin. And also the sonship is true to both natures. So Mary as mother is a mother of a son, so she must be mother of Christ according to both natures. Therefore she must be mother of God, because the Son is God according to his human nature, divine nature. And so she's mother according to that. So the property, the manner of existence is only begotten Son of the Father must be true of both natures. And having the same manner of existence, the same Son in both natures, is the union is through this being the same Son of the Father according to both natures. And we can call about him assuming humanity because the Son existed beforehand. But his humanity exists as union because it is Son. And this is why, as I said last week, that the motherhood or woman was essential for creation. There was going to never be even a creation, because the only way that the Creator could unite to the creation, overcome the contradiction or disconnect between create. It's not actually contradiction, but is the gulf of difference between what is created and the Creator, was via, in the case of the Son. It was only the Son who could connect creation, and he could only connect the creation by being a son of a creature. It's only by being son as a creature that he could become unite together creator and creature. And he can only be son if he has his father as his father. Therefore, it's necessary that his sonship and humanity is not from a human father, because God must be his father, but from a woman, from a mother, so that the father is still there. So the split of the sexes in the woman enables him to truly be a son, because he's truly a son of the mother in the human sense. He can take his humanity from her, but God is still the father. And this is the only way that all of creation can be united to the Creator, through the Son being Son. And this is why it's so important that Mary was from the beginning known to that, the salvation of humanity, right from the beginning. Our whole union was always going to be through a woman. And so it was not an afterthought he creates woman. This was always intention. But woman is the glory of man. And what does this mean? When he creates Adam and Eve, he makes Adam first, alone. And then he says to woman, it's not good for man to be alone, and puts woman there. This is not an afterthought. This is God himself, the image of God himself, who's been universally alone, existing. It's not good for him to have his eternal existence alone. He can create creatures to participate in his eternal existence, in his eternal life. So he creates man to share in his reality. He wants to share his eternal existence with all of us, with angels and all people. He wants to share that. And so, but he has to create, for the creatures, he has to create woman for that to happen, so that the Son can be truly Son according to both natures. And this is why motherhood is also so important, and why Paul says the women are saved through motherhood, because it's been a mother which led to the salvation of all creatures. The whole universe, the whole creation depends on motherhood. And so this is the primary goal of a woman, should be through motherhood, and as long as she brings up her children in faith, etc. There's also the path of virginity, because the Mother of God is also pure, ever virgin as well. And so there's another path through the convent life to become a virgin. But either of those two paths, but motherhood, for women, the careers, jobs, all these are irrelevant. That is not going to help anybody to salvation. What matters is being a mother. And this is why in the Old Testament it was a shame if you didn't bear children. Now, we're not in the modern times, if you can't bear children, okay, so be it. This is what happens. It's not absolutely, but you have to have a desire to be a mother, try to be a mother in those things. If you reject motherhood, I know I don't have time for that, it's not important, then you are revolting against God. You're revolting against the salvation of the world. You are living in a way which is anti-God, anti-Christian in this thing. So motherhood should be extolled and important. Your priority, if you're going to be married life, either that will become a virgin and become a holy one of the virgins, like the mother of God was set apart, not knowing a human man. So you are ready to receive Christ in the full sense as your husband, life, etc. So this is quite important. Now, in this happens. So we've got the union of one hypostasis and two, but some people were starting to teach that Christ only had divine activity, divine power, divine knowledge, and the human was sort of confused with that. His human nature is confused with divine nature. People struggle to understand the manner of existence, the hypostasis, of being a son, with the nature of God, and they were trying to find a union according to nature. How do we stick them together? Do they merge into each other, and all these sorts of things? And so you get the Dioscorus, Severus, and who are starting to teach that there is only one, and unfortunately, speaking correctly, but open to misinterpretation, St. Cyril Alexander talks of mia physis, the one nature, when he's talking really about one hypostasis of the two together, and also pointing to that, and that's the reason I said about contradiction at the start. While creatures are not like the Creator, absolutely not, we're a different essence. Nevertheless, we're created in the image of God. We are created to be united to God, to be one with God, to share in the life of God, to participate in the divine nature. So in a sense, we're not created in opposition to the divine nature. We are created as a limited version of that, which is not like the divine nature, because we're not infinite, we're not eternal, etc. We are created and limited, but created to open to participate in the divine nature, to become, in a sense, infinite with God, truly become God, in God, not according to his essence, which we always remain a creature, but according to his activities and his way of being. His love becomes our love, his infinity even becomes, because even his infinity is an activity of God in some way. It's not the pure essence per se. And so we can participate in all these things. That's what we've called it. So it's not an opposition to us in God in that sense. So one nature can talk about the sort of a union where we participate in the nature of God. It becomes his activities become our activities, and we work and live as one, because God is one, without any contradiction. However, they took it as a sort of mingling of a human nature and divine nature. And unfortunately, this is a mistake, where this cannot happen. There can't be something which half God, half creature as a sort of mingle. This is impossible. There's purely God, who is infinitely full in himself. He can't change, not able to be altered. And then there's a created nature. And we'll always stay as creatures. We can't suddenly become uncreated. Otherwise, if we did, we'd just simply turn into God. We'd be like some sort of Buddhist where you just collapse into God and lose any different identity, etc. But then we would never have been created in the first place. God did not create something to collapse in on himself and disappear. He created us to be eternal with him and to be distinct from him. So we mustn't ever think about the natures confusing each other. And so the Second Ecumenical Council, Fourth Ecumenical Council, rebuked us and said Christ is ever from and in two natures. So he remains in two natures. He is forever God and he is forever man. They're not confused. And I said the key is that they're both one Son, one Lord Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God, according to both natures. You can say that to both natures. It is our one Lord Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God, according to both natures. And that's union. But the natures don't get confused. So he has a human will and a divine will. He's a human operation and a divine operation. Now, the Fifth and Sixth Ecumenical Councils go further on into the especially the Sixth Ecumenical Council too, because they're starting to go, well, maybe he's the same nature, but he's only one will. And what this is doing is taking the will is belonging to the hypostasis, so that the manner of existence, that the will belongs to the being son. But the will doesn't belong to my being a son. That's nothing to do with being a son. That belongs to my nature. I have a will because I'm a human being. I don't have a will because I'm a son. I don't have a will because I'm a daughter. I have a will because I'm a human being. Everybody has a will. Everybody has human actions because they're a human nature, not because you're a daughter. Sorry, you don't have human actions. Only sons actually have human actions. You don't have a will. Well, though some people seem to behave like that, that is not the case. She has a will also. It's because they're human. And so this was a confusion of understanding the manner of existence with the hypostasis. And it's very subtle. And it's very easy to get these things confused, the difference between the manner of existence as hypostasis and trying to think of it as a container or a thing or an object itself of its own separate nature. And people do get caught up in that. And so this heresy sort of, the problem goes on for a long time. Even way into icons is also an expression of this. Anyway, so the fourth ecumenical council just it says that yes, there's one hypostasis, but it's from and into natures. The two natures don't get blurred over into each other. They remain completely intact. Which means when we're in eternity, we remain completely human. We don't sort of become half God. We remain completely human, but infused by the grace of God, infused by the divine power, and transformed into a spiritualized form of ourselves so that we may truly be glorified with God. We're not the heavy creatures of the earth as we are now, sort of totally stuck to time and space. There's a transformation which lifts us beyond this condition now. But we stay completely human. We stay with bodies. We stay as we are. We keep our own individual identity and unique identity. We stay male and female in some way, even though we no longer have a relationship of that sense anymore. We keep our identities in the form that we are in, but perfected and spiritualized in a way which is beyond description, in a way almost beyond recognition in a certain level, because we're not recognized in a purely earthly way now, but in a spiritualized way, which is why they didn't quite recognize Christ when he appeared, because it wasn't the recognition wasn't the purely physical wise, but when he spoke, they recognized who it was. And this is why our icons are slightly abstracted. Yes, they keep the identity of the person whom they're there, but they're not quite like the person. They're not photographs of a person. And we must be careful not to do photographs, because we're talking about a spiritualized form is what we remember. The filled with the grace of God. That's why you have the halo of a light shining through them there. And this is a transformation of a person into the age to come, not one which is physically earthly now. But nevertheless, it is their identity. There's pictures of it. The man wear a beard, a long one beard, a shorter beard. To identify that him is not, this saint is not the saint, it's not the saint. Again, there's a sort of certain abstraction which goes beyond this. And so that's all about what it is to be saved, is recognized in the icons. And that's all part of this problem, properly understanding nature and hypostasis. But the Fourth Ecumenical Council is really affirming we mustn't mingle or confuse the natures in any way. Christ still has two natures. He's eternally God and he's eternally man. That manhood hasn't disappeared or been any less human than it was from the moment of his incarnation. There's no confusion of this.
What year was
the council was 451, AD 451, and the main speaker at this one, or the main word, was St. Leo the Great, the Pope of Rome. He gave the main dogmatic tome, which set the standard of that. But it was agreed with all the other fathers at the time. But he was the main voice at this council. Right, and on to our favourite topic, the canons of the councils. Right, canon 1 is a canon that says we must keep all the previous canons in full force and effect. In other words, Orthodox Church doesn't change canons. When a canon is passed, it is, as I said, it's inspired by the Holy Spirit, is the will of God. It's a testimony of God. One of the other testimony canons will say. And it remains in force permanently. Now, there are times where a canon might be qualified a little bit, because when you make a general rule, it doesn't necessarily cover every situation. So occasionally another rule has to come out, so people don't feel obliged to have to force to keep something in a situation where it's not actually truly applies. Occasionally their fathers will come and say, in this context, we don't follow it exactly that way, we follow it this way. To keep truth of reality of humanity, the variation there. Not to overturn the other council, the canon stays in force. It's just qualified just to protect it from being overused in the case for which is not really intended, or it cause another problem. That just happens in the law all the time. You make a general law, it doesn't always fit every situation, and so we must have some room for qualification. So, but other than that, all the canons stay firm. An example would be like early canon, the apostolic. You have to have 2 or 3 bishops to ordain another bishop. In time, they say all the bishops of the metropolis ordain a bishop. Is this in contradiction? No. The principle is that more than one bishop must ordain, so that there's a recognition of bishops that this one is a bishop. It's not just one guy just going to do it. Being a bishop is something that's recognized by all the other bishops in the world. And so at least symbolically you have 2 or 3, but properly all the bishops in the metropolis should be agreeing. That's a proper, stricter way, is all the bishops. In emergency, maybe 2 or 3. So it's not overturning the canon is still true, but it's making it more completed. And this is a better way of expressing the same thing. And so both are true. And in emergency, you can have 2 or 3 during the ordination. But in general, it should be all of the bishops there. So this is just a part of the canons, not changing as such, but they always stay. And this is what's firmed in the first canon here. The second canon is basically against simony, when you ordain someone for money. I go to a bishop, hey, here's £20,000, make me a bishop. Oh, okay, I'll make you a priest. This is really forbidden. The gifts of God are not for sale. And as I think I have said before, one of the keys to this is we are saved as sons of God. We're not saved as fathers, we're saved as sons. That we are, and as a son, we receive the Holy Spirit, etc. The priesthood is here as a necessary function to help us to become sons of God, to baptize you so you be begotten again as son of God. He's the Father giving the Holy Spirit to you. As at the holy table to invoke the Holy Spirit upon there, so the Son may become present at the holy table, so you may partake and become sons of God. In preaching the word to you, so by taking the word, Christ may form in you. This is a role of mediating it from the Father to the people, so you can become sons. But the goal is to be sons, not to become priests. And so by grasping up the priesthood or spending money, it means you are grasping up a false idea of what salvation is. Salvation is not to become like the Father, it's to become a son of God. And if you're grasping this and paying money for it, then you've misunderstood the gospel. And we shouldn't be sort of grasping after these things. We should be seeking to be sons of God, to be baptized, to receive communion, and to become truly as sons in obedience to the Father. That is what we're saved as. So that's one of the reasons why this money thing is that also, of course, it leads to a whole lot of abuses with secular people of wealth, etc., getting up, and it's not. And it's got to be about spiritual right. Is a person capable of teaching the gospel properly? Is they teaching rightly, dividing the word of truth to the people, so that they may beget true sons of God, that they may lead them to true holiness, etc. Is a priest going to be doing that? Not because he's wealthy or some other qualification like that. So that was just again attacking the simony. Another one is, as clergy, we've got to be very careful not getting involved in the affairs of the world. So I shouldn't be sort of getting up and running big estates and earning money and all these things. I should be cut away from these things. I should just be focused on the church, my stipend as a priest and things. It's not good for priests to be caught up in earning lots of money and running the big estates and stuff like that. That's in the worldly affairs, and that's not good. We should be concentrated on the affairs of the church. So it's just attacking those who sort of get caught up in this way. Monastic life, the next one, is they're opposing monks who are dressing up, people who are dressing up as monks, causing disturbances. If you're going to be a monk, you go to a monastery, keep quiet and do your prayers, and again, about sonship, be quiet, obedient, and Don't go running around causing problems and going into cities and trying to seek money and, oh, look at me, I'm a holy man, and all this sort of thing. So this is a counsel sort of thing. Don't do that. You should stay in your, if you're going to be a monk, go and stay in your monastery, stay there. Now, occasionally monks can, if a priest go into heresy and stuff, may cause a little bit of commotion. They're well known for that. But otherwise, they shouldn't be going around in the cities and stuff and begging for money, this sort of thing. This is not right. So that's basically what that canon is covering. I haven't covered all the details because we've got to move reasonably quickly, but the general theme. Oh, yes, as bishops, clergymen, we shouldn't be going from city to city. We shouldn't be moving around. I shouldn't be serving here for 2 years and then go off to here for another 2 years. We should be stable. When the bishop goes to his diocese, he should be there for life. That's it. As a priest, he goes to his parish, he's there for life. Unless he's been promoted to a bishop or with some necessities. Occasionally people have to move. And it should be done with the consent of bishop and presbyter. But neither, the presbyter shouldn't be moving here and here just around if there's no necessity. Nor should the bishop be moving presbyters here and there. There's a principle of stability. And again, there's a part of a spiritual life of a father is stable in the community. Our relationship to God is stable. So our relationship to our parish and the priests of the parishes helps us to have our relationship with God is established through these roles there. And that needs to be permanent and stable. And that helps give accountability and everything like this and the true insight to people. But a huge part of Orthodox life is stability. We don't talk about it very much now. We talk about faith and all this, but we need stability. We need to be committed and staying to our local parish and stuff. We need to be going to church regularly. We need to have a regular prayer. We need to be stable in our life. We shouldn't be drifting around too much. Doesn't mean you can't if it's a necessity, but we shouldn't be going here to here to here. This is not good. We need stability and a stable relationship with our priests and stuff. And that's true of all the hierarchical functions as well. There should be a principle of stability. Doesn't mean there's not cases where you should move around, but you should minimize that, and you shouldn't be seeking to do this. So this is a canon that's just to reinforce that, not be done. Again, we shouldn't be ordained at large. What does that mean? The next canon, I can't be just made a priest. I have to be made a priest of a parish here. I'm a priest of this temple there. I'm a presbyter of that church there. I'm not just made a priest in general. I'm a priest of this diocese. And if someone's a chanter, you chant in this temple. You're not just made a chanter that in the wild. So everything is fitted to jurisdiction, a place. And that's why each bishop has his place, a territory. And all the churches have their territories. They're bound by territory. Not connected as in modern thing people think that my ethnicity, oh, I'm a bishop of this, people move to this country, I'll go and be their bishop. No, you're not there as by ethnicity or anything like that. You are by place. We're not priests of anything to do with, oh, I'm a priest of young people, old people, or any human category. You're a priest on a piece of land, a piece of territory, and this is your place. You're the minister. All the people come to you on that land. Whether old, young, black, white, pink, purple, whatever, they all come to the same parish and the same thing. Because we're one church of all nations gathered together, and it's defined by land. And so, again, the presbyters and stuff should be fixed to a place, and this becomes my territory. It also means this is a place I have the jurisdiction to teach. This is my place. I don't have a jurisdiction to go and teach the next neighbour's parish. If I'm invited to preach, I can preach. But I have no right to go in and teach in there. Nor does the bishop to go. He can't teach in another diocese. It's fixed here. So hopefully somewhere in Britain we all get a proper diocesan structure where the bishop each has his own territory and says 6 bishops all in the same, calling themselves the Bishop of London and ridiculous things like this. Or even not even calling themselves after a city, like I'm the bishop of a whole country. Whoa, what is this? You can't. The bishop is a bishop of a city. The synod runs a company. Now you might have a need from your city to minister beyond the city. That's fine, but the bishop is fixed to a city, to a gathering of people, a large gathering of people together. There's a proper locus of a bishop, not a sort of a large regions of territory. Of course, there are exceptions if you happen to be in a certain Canada or something like that, and there is no city there, and it might have to be named after something a little bit more. But this should be a rarity. But usually, there are places where there are cities, or even large towns or whatever, of a government, and the bishop should be named for that. Anyway, so that's Canon 6, not to make someone at large who's not fixed to a temple, to a place of worship. Yes, I'm not allowed, as a clergy or monks, you're not allowed to join the army, you're not allowed to become a civil servant. You must keep the distinction between what is state and church, must be kept separated out. So once you get into a church, you're not allowed to have a dual role as someone in the state, and nor is someone in the state allowed to have a dual role in the church. The two must be kept distinct, the separation of church and state. Not that there's a complete, like a US separation of church and state. There's a union of churches. The state should be Christian, and its constitution should be bound in the church, the rules and the canons of a church, the gospel, the creed of a church should be the creed of a country, that the country is a Christian country. But the authorities, the actual roles, authorities, they need to be kept distinct. The emperor is not able to come and offer the liturgy as a priest, nor is the priest able to sit on the throne as an emperor. These two functions must be kept distinct. The authorities, so that the state doesn't corrupt the church, nor does the church interfere with the state and try to make a theocracy which is forcing all people to live the way of Christ. We must have freedom. We must keep these things and get involved with worldly affairs like insurances and inheritance. The church should be focused on the salvation of souls, speaking to the nation when it's drifting away from what is good piety, etc. in the culture that's going to damage the salvation of its people, but not interfering in the speed limit of this town or that. That's nothing to do with the church, and its ministry shouldn't be seen and be involved in these sorts of laws. This is not right. Nor should the state have any authority in the teachings of the doctrines of the church. This is why the emperor could call an ecumenical council, but he didn't tell the people what to believe. He didn't have a voice. The bishops decide, and he signs off. He just manages and makes sure they don't fight each other, but then they come to a true agreement. He can testify, he witness to the agreement and sign it off, but he doesn't actually have a voice in actual what is said. Occasionally emperors did try to have a voice, etc. That's the bishops to allow that or not. There's always a little bits of, because at times the bishops get a little bit interfering with the church and the state affairs. There's always things, but in principle the two should be kept distinct. And as part of that, I'm not allowed to work for the government as a government role, and nor or in the army, and nor, so we've got to keep these two. If I'm asked to help as a priest, to be a chaplain or something in the military, okay, but you should be working for the church under them, not actually formally attached to the military. Otherwise you start getting confused between the two roles. Right, Canon 8. Yeah, so just again, a clergyman attached to poorhouses or monasteries or martyries, let them remain under the authority of the bishop of a city in question, and not allowed to move off and stuff. So I need to stay under the bishop with whom I was appointed and stuff. I'm not allowed to go running off from that. Canon 9. If any clergyman, all right, this is a more important one. If any has a dispute with another, let him not leave his own bishop and resort to secular courts. So if we have a dispute with another clergyman, I shouldn't go to the court, to secular courts to decide this. We should go to the church. We go to the bishop to decide this. And if I have a trial for the referee, so other presbyters should be sitting on, so the two readers have a big squabble of themselves, or reading a subdeacon or a couple of deacons, the presbyters should be sorting this out in their own diocese. But if I have a dispute with my bishop, I appeal to the synod. The bishop can't be the judge in his own case. So if I have a problem with the bishop, then I must go to the synod, must hear it, and apparently there needs to be 6 bishops there for a presbyter, or 3 bishops for a deacon. So that should be dealt with the bishop. So the bishop's not the judge in his own case, and this also sets that there's an appeal even from that. So if we have a metropolitan, which unfortunately been lost so much in the Greeks and the Antiochians now, but now I have a synod, and then from there, if that doesn't go well, I can also appeal to a patriarch, or in this canon, the Patriarch of Constantinople. So that not above the patriarch, I can't appeal to the patriarch and then go to the Constantinople. No, I have to choose the Patriarch of Antioch or the Patriarch of Constantinople. And I cannot go from, once I've heard appeals been heard by a patriarch, there is no further appeal. The patriarchal court is the final court. But the Constantinople could be as an alternative court, which is actually, this is a slightly wider interpretation than some will give it. But I like this because we have to be under the same tradition, the same law. It means that the one patriarch can't have its own laws, its own rules, which is not shared by a different tradition of the ecumenical patriarchate. And so this helps to actually stop churches dividing into ethnic groups or separating from each other, that we're all under the same law, under the same tradition, and not to confuse local customs, etc., with the canonical tradition of the church. We're under the same law, we're under the same canons in all churches. We are one church. So, and I think this has been lost now. We're starting to get too much of, well, we have the Russian way, we've got the Antiochian way, we've got and we each have almost our own set of laws, etc. But even then, all our synods are collapsing, so there's no triple layer now of metropolitan synod for the presbyter of the bishop, and then a patriarch on above that is appeal. Now it's just one synod with the patriarch. There's no true sense of appeal now, and it's danger of getting old boys clubs and stuff and personalities corrupting things, and you're not true justice. So anyway, this is what this canon is about, Canon 9. Canon 10, I'm not allowed to be a clergyman in two different churches. I can't be receiving a stipend here and a stipend there. You're in one church, you're under one bishop, one place, you're one parish. You shouldn't be sort of receiving stipends to two or three. Now, sometimes you have to move around and help because there's lack of priests and stuff. But in theory, you should be stuck to one, so you're not receiving money from two places, but it's definitely in one diocese. So that's Canon 10. Canon 11, all those who are indignant need assistance. Oh, right, you can travel if you have ecclesiastical letters. We still have this today. If I want to go for a trip to Romania, or if I need to see something, I've got to get a letter from the bishop to say he's a good standing, I'll give him permission, I allow him to go. And so this is a good order. And even lay people, I was thinking today, there's a sense that in the old days it was important that you actually got a letter from your priest to affirm that when you went to another parish, who you were good standing, you could take communion and things like that. And we're not doing that now, which is leading to open a lot of abuse. So abusers can get them, they can jump from parish, go, oh, I'm Orthodox and all the rest of it, and then they cause problems. So we should go back to this, where if you're going from one parish to another, you need to have a letter from that, or be well known in this from your priest to say who you are, what you're doing with your thing, and we should have much better control of who is in our parish, who are the members of our parish, proper parish lists and stuff. As even Anglicans used to do, you have your list, everyone knows, everyone's registered. We should get back to that and just make sure it helps to keep safeguarding. That if everybody is known, and then we can keep a better track of people. And again, this is why having Romanians, all these different bishops here is very bad. We should have one synod here with each bishop in local territory. So every set of parishes under one bishop, and then you've got that. And then if someone goes across to everyone, and it's under the same synod, it covers over a lot of the safeguarding problems and danger of, one priest going to here and I'll go to the Russians, and they don't like the Greeks, so I'm going to take you. And then you get a lot of bad people using this under the radar to cause problems. So we really need to sort that out, because just go back to normal canonical order. And that's the main thing we could do for safeguarding, not making up sort of little rules and stuff, borrowing from the worldly rules, but setting our own church in order so that we have a proper accountability. The next canon 12 is, this is interesting. It's people using government authorities to split a metropolis area. So in the Roman Empire, you have each city, and each city is in a sort of province of metropolis. There's one key city and about 6 or 7 bishop cities, small cities underneath it. And then they are gathered together in large groups called exarchs, and then the church gathered them into patriarchates. Alexandria and Antioch were actually just one exarch, so they had about 10 metropolises underneath them, with about 6 bishops under each metropolis, but they were just one exarch. Rome had about 5 or 6 or 7 exarchates under it. It was huge, And Constantinople got 3, Thracia, Asia, and Pontus, when they said Constantinople is a... But one of the important things is, though the church, when it first set its hierarchical orders, used the order of the empire, Rome was, because it was a capital city, became the first see. Alexandria was the second city of the empire, it became the second see. Antioch became the third see. In the regions, and our senior bishops were in the civil metropolis city, the administrative city, the higher city in the little region. That bishop was considered first of the churches. So what this canon is saying is that if someone tries to break up and say this other city is a metropolis, using the emperor to do that, the church says no. Once our order is in place, we don't change it. You can't change the status of cities. There's one metropolis in here. Even if the other city is made a metropolis by the government, the first one stays. The other one may be given a title on or something, but he is never going to actually have the authority. There's only one metropolitan in the area, and one there, and the bishops stay bishops. This is where the Constantinople made a huge error 100 years ago, and they said all bishops are metropolitans now. This was a huge contrary to canons. They had no right to do that. Absolutely no right. The one metropolitan each and the other bishops. Because the patriarch Constantine could only ordain metropolitans, he couldn't ordain the bishops. And by making them all metropolitans, he claims the right to ordain all bishops. This is contrary to the canons. This is contrary to his authority. And this is why we've got this collapsed synods and Antioch and stuff like that. And you lost the Pure Law. This is very much against the canons. They had no right to do this. And so we have local bishops. And now we get these metropolitans and assistant bishops who are not true bishops of their own true diocese. This is very much contravening. But the church's order doesn't change. So even now, Constantinople may be a little backwards little town and stuff, it stays the first church of the first of the churches. Alexandria stays second. We can't change this order. If it falls into heresy, okay, it's not there. But if it comes back, it takes its place in order. And same with Rome. We still respect that it would be the first of the churches if it became Orthodox. Again, we can't change this. These orders are fixed. The orders metropolitans and stuff. And this has been lost now. But this is what it is canon is saying. We shouldn't be messing around with this. Once a church is placed in England, Canterbury will always remain the first see. York will be the first see of a metropolis in the north. And we've got two metropolises. And then Canterbury is just like this sort of, has an exarchate role. So in UK, you have two metropolises, Canterbury in the south and York in the north. Scotland is a separate metropolis as well, and Ireland has its own two metropolises, I think one in the north of Armagh and then another one in the south. And then Canterbury would then an exarch. It has a sort of general rule of over all the churches, or at least in both metropolises of York and stuff. So that's what it's called, exarch, underneath the patriarch in Rome in the ancient ways. And you see this in the Anglicans still have a structure to some degree. But we should preserve the structure that has been given to us. And Orthodox coming here should respect the structure that is actually here from the traditions of the fathers as well, and not set up their new structures. That's disrespectful of what's been received. So anyway, yes, again, 13 again is people moving around, strange clergymen and readers are not allowed to conduct services anywhere in a different city without recommendatory letter from their own bishop. So even a reader like Felix Nurkanta, he can't go to another place and start serving unless he's got a letter from his bishop. The Russians still follow this. Unfortunately, Antiochians and Greeks have lost the proper dignity of the clerical status of readers and lost. They just treat them as laymen with a fancy name. Not all places, and they forget that they need letters just as much. The Russians are more careful with actually still recognizing this. Again, this is about marriage. Readers and chanters can still marry, but once you become a sub-deacon higher, you cannot. But this particular one is he must marry an Orthodox woman. He's not allowed to marry a heretic. That is forbidden. And matter of fact, all lay people are forbidden to marry heretics or those outside the church, but more especially for the readers and the clergy, that they must be. And if they are not, they must convert them first. But I don't recommend this, because the conversion should be for the sake of a faith, not because you love so-and-so. That's a mixed motivation. It's not a pure love of Christ there. Though sometimes it can work, and sometimes I've seen mixed marriages and the person gets converted and they become very, very strong, faithful person. But more often than not, that doesn't work. But anyway, so that's what that one is about. The next one's about deaconesses. Women as deaconesses, canon 15. She must not allowed to be before the age of 40. When you become a deacon or deaconess, it's a stable thing. A woman, a deaconess, is unmarried. She's not allowed to marry. She must be single and remain single. The reason being is, as a priest, I'm not allowed to actually work for a secular employer. Why? Because I can't have two masters. I can't be under the authority of the bishop or to conduct services for a church and have my time taken by a secular authority. No, you must work for me today. Well, no, but there's a feast of such and such a feast and that. No, well, you've got to. I can't be divided like this. I work for one authority. It's a church feast. I come here. I can work for myself where I've got my own time. I can be a tent maker, do all the work, but I'm in charge of my time. So if there's a church service, I drop everything and go to do the church service. I can't have another authority. And a wife is under the authority of her husband, and therefore the church never makes the deaconess there, because she has to be obedient to the church, not the husband. But the church will not interfere with the authority of a husband. If a husband says, no, sorry dear, I want you home today, his authority must be obeyed. Then the church must not interfere with his authority. If he says wife to stay home, there. But then there's a problem. She's got two masters, and therefore she cannot be in that situation. She cannot be under a husband. So she must be free of a husband to be a deaconess. And the usual thing was that a woman under 40 is too prone to want to get married again. And so they made a range of 40. Originally it may have even been 60, but then it came 40, that she was stable enough in her singleness as a nun or something like that, or a widow, that she won't be falling back into the temptation of marriage. So that's one of the reasons for that. And so if she does that, she loses her dignity as a deaconess, just like a priest or something to go get married after, then they would also lose the priesthood. But yeah, so but for women it was considered age of 40 that they were before they should become a deaconess. The next one, 16, is about virgin. Once she's dedicated, she's not allowed to go and get married. That's basically, but the bishop is told to be kind in this regard. So we mustn't, so virgins getting caught up in marriage, or even sometimes a monk, there's got to be, more for virgins actually and monks, there's got to be sort of kindness to it, and not be absolutely rigorous and cast, and there's a certain cruelty to that. Monks are usually a little bit harder. The women, it's okay. So a bit more kindness, and especially in those days when if you suddenly exercise a woman, she could end up in a very, very bad position and starve to death and things like that. A man was easier to survive on his own, but a woman could be in a much more dangerous position. So I think that's one of the reasons they showed some kindness. We should so do that today. Yes, the next 17 was just about parishes, like a rural parish should stay under their bishop, shouldn't be swapping back and forth, bishop shouldn't be arguing, well, that's mine, that's mine, that's mine. It's stability again, it stays there. If, however, it's sort of like something's been for 30 years or more by custom has become under someone else's, then it might be okay, and there's no one argued about it, and everyone's, then it sometimes can shift across, just to reflect the reality of the situation and the reality of pastoral care. So there's some scope for that. But generally, and then Canon 17 also allows for, if you have problems, there's appeals to the Metropolitan and appeals to the Constantinople again there. So it's another one setting up that appeal structure. Again, some people say that this canon only applies for Constantinople's exarchates like Thracia, Pontus and Asia, where you could go over to the exarch, like the sees of the sea in Thracia. I can't remember which one. Asia was like Ephesus, was an exarch. He was a metropolitan, a bishop, and an exarch. All the metropolitans, he used to ordain some of the metropolitans. They could appeal to him or to Constantinople. The one Pontus, there's about 7 or 8 metropolises under them, many bishops, cities, and there was exarch of the see, and he could appeal him, or it could be wider as an ecumenical canon that anywhere, like in Antioch, could appeal to the exarch, which is the same as their patriarch, or to Constantinople. So the Russians, a priest in Russia, could appeal to the patriarch of Russia or to Constantinople, which is how Constantinople understands it today, though the Russians will argue it otherwise. But so, though of course in this canon Rome was still in the church, it would be inappropriate for someone in England to appeal to Constantinople rather than to Rome in this particular situation. So it's an interesting question about that particular, how to interpret it, and that's been an ongoing dispute. As I said, I prefer the wider one for our modern times because it points to more unity of church doctrine and practice. And the crime was, and by the way, Church of Cyprus had a case where they recognized it. So a bishop in Cyprus had a problem with the synod in Cyprus, so he appealed to Constantinople, and the appeal was heard and passed down. It was found in favor of the synod, but nevertheless, they took the appeal, and because Cyprus is this Autocephalous church, it's not under Constantinople in the direct sense. It was originally under Antioch, Patriarch of Antioch, then it got its sort of independence from that. But they could take appeal to Constantinople. So that reinforces the way I was interpreting it there. A crime of conspiracy or fraction being prohibited. We're not allowed to get monks and clergy coming together, oh, we don't like the bishop, and make a little group and then start fighting against the... This is not good. This is not good. So this has been, and monastics sort of going against abbot, I'm going to form a group and fight. This is not good. We need to do that. That doesn't mean that we sometimes don't, if the bishop is preaching heresy openly or something like that, and there's a good reason, sometimes we might need to stop commemorating him or something like that. But otherwise, we shouldn't be sort of going for politics and this sort of fraction. The church is unity. We're one body, one Christ. We love one another. Christ is the same as we are, one body to each other. How can we divide fractions? This is a denial of a church. This is a denial that we are one body together of all people in all places. And so if you start going to this mentality of a spiritual fraction, you've lost the plot. You're not even thinking in like an orthodox way of thinking now. 19. It's just telling the bishops that they need to meet in their metropolises, have councils twice a year, and so that they can deal with the matters of the churches. So there's people have problems, so-and-so's messed up, this priest has done that. So the bishop should meet twice a year in their metropolises and hold the councils and deal with these issues. And again, it's good management of the churches to make sure everything's done and safeguarding, all the cases are properly heard, everything's kept in good order. So this is a canon just telling them off that if they're getting lazy to do that, to get back to doing that habit. 20 is, again, it's just reinforcing you stay in your own church. There's another canon just saying you're not allowed to go off to another church. 21, a clergyman or layman accusing a bishop or clergyman are not allowed to file charges against them promiscuously and without investigation. So if I bring a charge, or a layman brings a charge against a bishop, first you've got the charge will only stand if you've shown a big good character. This is ecclesiastical manner. Now there's another canon we talked about before, that if someone in the world was offended by bishops, then they should be heard, because the bishop mustn't cause offense to the ones in the world. So even if a heretic is a personal matter, like he stole my money or something like that, or slapped me on the face, then he should be heard. But if it's about ecclesiastical matters of the church, or he didn't let me serve here, or then no, everyone's reputation must be checked out. So that we're not, because bishops are prone to false accusations, people coming up and making trials, trying to, because they don't like them or something like that, and people come. And so this is a way of saying, look, make sure that if someone's going to charge against someone in the church, the charge is genuine. Check it out. There's not just someone coming out just for rubbishy grounds and stuff like that, just because they have an angst of that and they want to get him down, and he said something bad to them in confession. He gave him a penance, so I want to get him. So no. So this is just reinforcing the integrity of a person given it. So it's not a bad false accusation. This 22 is not, I'm not allowed to pinch the affairs of a bishop after he dies. So if he's got his property and stuff, I'm not allowed to go, oh, look at his books, take them all, save and run off. We're not allowed to do this. So this is not right. It belongs to the church, and so we shouldn't take advantage of that. That's what that canon about. Obviously, sometimes people did. Canon 23. This is just. Again, people turning up to Constantinople to cause problems with monks and clergymen from other provinces and stuff. Without their bishop's consent, they turn up and start going, so and so's here, or whatever they do. This is prescribed. We're not supposed to be doing that. I mean, it's not saying we can't talk about stop heresies, but we shouldn't really be running off the fanar and making big squabbles about that. Yeah, I mean, there's always exceptions, but in principle, that's what's good. 24. As the monasteries have been consecrated at the consent of a bishop, monasteries should remain monasteries forever. So once you make a monastery, it can't stop being a monastery. It should go on in perpetuity. So that's what they're doing. And 25. Whereas some other tribes have been informed to neglect the flocks committed to them. Again, just the bishops and metropolitans, they need to be doing their role. If you made a bishop, you need to do functions as a bishop. You need to be looking after your flock. You can't sit in your palace and have nice meals and just go for holidays around the world, etc. No, you've got to be a bishop and do your job. That's what Canon 25 is. In some churches we have formed bishops administering the ecclesiastical with the services. This one, it's saying that a bishop has got overall money control, but he must have a steward, a priest on the side, who is making sure that he's not all above board and double checking the books and all the rest of it. So the bishop, though he has overall charge of finances, doesn't do it by himself. Make sure everything's above board, safeguarding, checking, make sure everything's done properly. They need a steward. So 26, 27, we're almost there. The Holy Church made a rule regarding women. If you punch a woman, rape a woman, or grab one, if they should be, you're defrocked as a clergyman. If you're layman, you're anathematized. So you're not allowed to go around grabbing women and racing off of them like the old caveman, bang on her head and drag her off. That is forbidden. Okay, Canon 28 is a famous big canon, and I think we're in power. So I'm going to talk about that next week. Here we go. So we can wait for next week. Good. Off you go.
Father, I only say that because if I don't get the bus,
I understand. So, see you next week.